Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, this is our second live lecture. I'm sorry that Al-Nafi has done a platform change and that has caused a lot of technical problems, but hopefully they will be resolved soon. So in this second lecture, it is my intention to cover section E of chapter 1. Chapter 1 should have been available to you before. Section E basically describes 4 fundamental flaws in modern statistics for which there is no solution. So that is basically the title of the chapter is Why We Need a New Approach. And basically it's this section which explains why there are big problems in modern statistics and how we can, it doesn't discuss how we can resolve them, but just explains what these problems are. And actually the course will be about resolving these problems. Here we go. The share screen is on. And so I'll go through this slideshow. Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As I said, there are 4 fundamental flaws in the foundations of statistics. And they are listed here. We are allowed to make arbitrary distributional assumptions. There is a positivist theory of knowledge involved. And we have the wrong definition of probability. And there is no definition for causality. So these are the 4 flaws. I'll explain more what they are and how they operate. So you do statistics, you're familiar with the idea that, okay, here's some data, let's assume it's normal. Where do you get this? How can you assume it's normal? What happens if the data is not normal? Similarly, in regression analysis, you assume that errors are independent and that they have mean 0. And you assume that there's no, you assume exogeneity, which nobody really understands because there is no definition of causality. What it really means is that there is no causal relationship between the errors and the regressors. Now, what allows us to make such assumptions? The answer is nothing except computational convenience. If you can get answers only if these assumptions are true, but there is no other justification for these assumptions. So one thing that we don't realize, I didn't realize when I was studying these, that everything that we say afterwards is actually driven by these arbitrary assumptions. I used to think, and most students believe, that what we are saying comes from the data, but it doesn't come from the data. It comes from the assumptions. And by changing these assumptions, you can get whatever result you want from whatever data set you have. This is, so basically, the result that you want is coming from what you assume. And you can change the assumptions to get whatever result you want. Okay, so the second flaw is the positivist philosophy of knowledge. What does this mean? Well, basically, very roughly, we have been describing this whole process in detail. After the Europeans rejected Christianity and rejected God, they said we can't trust in the unseen, because God, angels, after that. So what we'll do is we'll restrict knowledge to what can be seen and touched. So here you have a picture of an iceberg. And the positivist philosophy of knowledge says that you can only look at the appearances. If something is hidden, then we cannot have knowledge about it, and we should not even try to get knowledge about this. So that's the positivist philosophy of knowledge. So what that means is that what is unobservable, you can't know. So only what is observed is the subtopic of knowledge. So if you observe something, then you can obviously measure it in many different ways. You can take the photograph and measure it, and many other ways. So that means that since we are only dealing with appearances, we're not dealing with underlying reality, you can always reduce everything to numbers. And then Basically, the statistical analysis starts with the data sets and ends with the data sets. You only talk about numbers. You never talk about the underlying reality. The third problem is wrong definitions of probability. Nearly all textbooks tell you that the probability is the limiting frequency of the proportion of heads in an infinite number of trials. This is completely wrong. It's actually meaningless. It's ridiculous. The reason that positivism prevents you from reaching the natural definition is that the natural definition has to do with unobservables. When you flip a coin and you say the probability of heads is half, what you're saying is that it could have come up tails also. But this it could have come up tails is not observable. So this natural definition is not available to positivists. There is another problem that is sort of related, but not exactly the same, and that is determinism. Once you see the Europeans replaced religion with science, then they said, okay, Newton's laws are the basis of everything. And according to Newton's laws of physics, once the universe starts, every particle will follow a deterministic course to the end of time. So there is no freedom. If there's no freedom, then there's no chance. There's no real probability. So you can't define probability. So something else could not have happened because there's only one thing that can happen, and that is already determined. And the fourth problem is that there is no definition of causality available. So here is basically the data cannot differentiate between correlation and causation because data can only show correlation. See, if you think of the positivist philosophy, the appearances of causation are only in correlation. You can't really see. Causation is a hidden, deep, underlying concept. It cannot be observed except through correlations. So, for example, there's a very strong correlation between ice cream sales and shark attacks. But of course, these two things have nothing to do with each other. But that's the only thing you can observe. So the point is that actually when you have a sunny day on the beach, then you have lots of ice cream sales, and also you have lots of people. So you have the increased probability of shark attacks. But this thing we can understand only because we know about the real world. We know about summer, we know about beaches, we know about sharks. Without this underlying knowledge, if you just had two sequences of numbers, which are highly correlated, there's just nothing you can do. No kind of data analysis which will tell you the difference between this data set and some other data set where there is general correlation. So basically, you have to go underneath the numbers to the real world if you want to learn about causation. So what are the contributions of this textbook or course? We will handle all of four of these problems. So we have the realist philosophy of knowledge. Now, the realist, unlike the positivists who say that knowledge is only of appearances, the realist philosophy say that real knowledge is only of the unobservables, exactly what is ruled out by positivism. So what about the appearances, what we can see? What we can see is only a clue to the unseen. So we have to use the clues to discover what is the hidden reality. But knowledge is only of hidden reality. It is not really about appearances at all. So this means that data analysis can never end with numbers. Ultimately, when we do a data analysis, we must come to a conclusion about the real world. And the data is never enough. It never provides sufficient information. You have to go beyond the data to the real world context. So these things are all very different from the standard approach. So one of the implications of this real statistics is that there is no universally applicable methods of data analysis because each data analysis is specific to the real world context. So every real world situation, exactly the same set of data, same set of numbers will be analyzed differently if it is coming from Australia, and if it is coming from China, if it is coming from Africa. The data analysis will not be the same, because we will shift it according to the real world context. So what that means is that real statistics is difficult to learn, because there's no one pattern that you have, no one technique that will apply everywhere. So there's only one method, which is the apprentice method, case by case. We take a data set and we take a real world situation and we study it, and then you learn something. And then you take another real world situation. And after you do a lot of these studies, you begin to get some understanding of how data analysis should be done. So we will also introduce a new theory of probability. And this is time branching dependent probability. So I'm just giving you an example. Suppose that the Spanish Armada sets sail for England, and the next day there is a weather event. Either it might be calm, in which case the ships sail through to the England and the Spanish army sinks the British Navy, or there is a storm. And then the Spanish Armada sinks. And that's what happens on the third day or the second day. And if you're on the first branch where the Spaniards win, then basically Spain gets to rule the world because England has been destroyed. But on the second branch, Britain gets to rule the world because Spain, which was its rival, gets destroyed. So this is, so the probability, there's only one probability event here, and that is the weather event. Whether it will be, there will be a storm or whether it will be calm. So the point is that probability must vary with time. When you say, what is the probability of a storm? You have to ask, at what time? Is it before the storm, which is at t equals 0? So at that time, maybe the probability is 40%. But after the storm, it's either 100% or 0%. Either the storm happened or it didn't. So on day 2, you cannot ask about the probability of the storm because the event has already taken place. So probability exists before the event and is extinguished after the events. And to evaluate the probability, we must know the time at which you are evaluating the probability. So this is something which is not mentioned in any of the standard theories of probability. So there is a famous theorem called the Bayes rule. And if you look at any textbook, it will mention that there is a Bayes rule, and it's a simple, trivial mathematical truth that the probability of A given B is equal to the probability of B given A times the probability of A. So actually this thing is false. This is true only if the two events are taking place at exactly the same time, in which case you can reverse A and B. But if the events are sequential in time, then you can talk about the probability of future given the past. That is permissible, but you can't talk about the probability of a storm today given that Spain won the battle tomorrow. That just doesn't make any sense, because what happens today will determine what happens tomorrow. So you can't condition backwards. So if probability of A given B is defined, then probability of B given A is not defined if the events are chronological. But this very simple intuitive fact is not mentioned in any single textbook of probability. And finally, we have that there is no definition of causality in current textbooks, none at all. Now, it's very interesting that infants can learn about causal relationships almost from birth. They understand that if I suck on the mother's breast, I will get milk. They understand that if I cry, somebody will come to help me. And they understand that if they try to grasp an object, they can pull it closer to them. But the philosophers cannot understand. For centuries, ever since David Hume pointed it out, that you can only see correlation, you can't see causation. They have been trying to figure out what causation means without success. The number of books and articles on causality is so huge that you can't even read all of them in a lifetime. So what is it that infants find easy to understand, but philosophers don't? That's because philosophers are committed to this deterministic world. If you have a deterministic world, then everything was determined when the universe was born. After that, there is no free choice. In that case, there is no cause, because everything that happens was already caused from the t equals 0. So the initial conditions determine everything will happen, and basically everything altogether determines in the past, determines everything together in the future, and there is no individual cause that I will pick something and that my choice will make a difference. So to make it simpler, suppose we say that I take this billiard ball and I hit it with a stick and it moves. Did my hit cause the ball to move? Well, in a deterministic universe, there was no other possibility. I must hit the ball and it must move. But the real meaning of causality is that if I had not hit the ball, it would not have moved. This is what's called a counterfactual. So the counterfactual could not have happened, and in positivist philosophy, even if it's possible for it to happen, we can never know about what did not happen. So in either case, there is no possibility of determining causality. Now, the thing is that the babies understand that I can choose to do something and I can choose not to do it. I can cry and call the mother, or I can refuse to cry and not call the mother. Or if I touch this ball and hit it, it will move. If I don't touch, it will not move. So babies learn both sides, that what happens if I do and what happens if I do not do. And that is how they learn the counterfactual. They know that if I do nothing, the ball will stay there, but if I push it, it will move. So both sides of the counterfactual, they learn from experience. So the babies can learn about counterfactuals, but philosophers are still arguing about it, and they have no understanding of what counterfactual knowledge is and how we can get it. So basically, I can summarize and finish by saying that there are two axioms which philosophers use in their study of knowledge. One philosophy is determinism, which means that everything just will happen. There's no two choices. Nothing can happen by chance. Everything that is going to happen is already predetermined to happen. So in that case, there can be no probability and no causality. And then there is this logical positivism, which says that even if there is freedom, even if there is choice, even if there is chance, we can never know what might have happened. So there is no possibility of knowledge about probability. So basically, that's why conventional probability is built on flawed foundations, and that's why we need to build a new theory. So I end with this quote by Bertrand Russell: probability is the most important concept in modern science, especially because nobody has the slightest idea of what it means. And this is exactly true. Nobody really knows what probability means, because once you adopt the positivist framework, there's no way, it's impossible to understand probability. Okay, so I'm going to conclude my lecture here, and then we can either ask for questions or we can just go on to the discussions by the students. Section E is also being covered today, so we will have a chance to discuss these when we have more discussion. All right, so let me see. I'll try to. Wa alaikum assalam.
So this here. Sir, I want to ask a question. There is a confusion about the counterfactual. I hope everyone is listening to me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, yes, sir. About the counterfactual, basically, what they say about the counterfactual, they say that because in the social sciences it is really hard to create a counterfactual. So what they do basically, they divide the samples in treatment and the control, right? So is this the right way? Can we do it in the social sciences? I don't think so. Though I know it's not right to do it, but I want your suggestion. I want your comments on it.
Very good. Actually, you see, over the past 20, 30 years, many people have realized that you cannot do without counterfactual. So lots of attempts are being made to have to explain what a counterfactual is and how it works. And so some of these are relatively good efforts. And so yes, I think that it's possible that the new methods being used might have utility. It depends on the context, actually. There is no, as I said, there is no universal method. This is how you do counterfactuals. In every different real world situation, the counterfactuals are different, and the way to handle them will be different. Okay. Okay, sir. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Oh, have you been muted? No, I'm having a problem with this. Somebody has muted you. I'm trying to get to the right screen and having trouble doing this. Yusuf, can you unmute Saud?
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, it's clear. I appreciate. Acha, sir, now the next thing is like about the probability. Usually, what we teach basically the basic theory of probability, and we say that the sample space is already known to us, and they call it the theoretical sample space. And we know when you roll a dice, so we already know the probability of coming like one or the odd number or the even number is already given there. There's no point of t is equals to 0 in it. So we need a more your deliberation on the new concept of probability, because I want
Yes.
to know it, because I have some idea about it, because I'm your student. So I just want to make it like clear to my students, my new students, so how we
Mhm.
can go through it. This is I need your more comments on it, more elaboration from you.
Oh, well, actually, that is, Yani, that we're going to study in much greater depth and detail. This is just an introduction, and this is just to explain why we need to think about probability from scratch, from zero. The current method by which we study probability is wrong because simply it doesn't take into account the influence of time. How, what, at what time do we have the sample space, and what happens after the experiment is done? So all of this is not part of conventional theory, and so we need to build the theory again from scratch, right? How?
Uh, Another question. I just want to use this class time to encourage the people,
Sir, can I
as
ask a
because
question?
Oh, yes, I think Homer Abdullah has also got his hand up. Yes, go ahead. Can you?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to ask a question. Uh, as you have said that mm, uh, uh, the
Your voice is breaking up. All right. Saud, I think you can take over and present your group discussion of the questions. You can put your question in the chat box and we will look at it, Umair, since your voice was not coming out.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Acha, I just want to use this forum, or I want you to please encourage the students more.
Yes.
As you just said, we have started our sessions within the group sessions, and people are very enthusiastic. Some are very enthusiastic, and some are not taking interest into it at all. I'm sorry to say that, but this is happening. Maybe I have like thinking. Maybe they were just thinking about it, that you will be starting with the measures of central tendency with a sprinkle of Islamic, or the new thing of like meta knowledge. I guess it's new to comprehend and digest for most of us. They are not maybe getting it,
so,
or maybe feel it like boring. So I just want you to please encourage students on into it. Acha,
All right.
following
So
your
I think, wait a
instructions,
minute.
so
I
I
think
have prepared following your instructions. I have prepared my students, and three of our basically students prepared their presentation, and two of them are presenting here. Can you please unmute Saira and Imran? They will present their portion.
all right. Humair and I see Humair and Asad and Maz have hands up. So I think let's go through the sessions and we will take the questions later. Anybody who wants to should put their question in the chat box, and then we can. I will look at the chat box, and if there is something that is worth discussing at the right time, I will bring it up.
That's
So,
good. That's good.
Saud, you can
So
go ahead.
please unmute Saira and Imran. They will present our portion.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm already unmuted.
Okay, Saira, go ahead.
Okay.
Saira.
Okay, please enable me to share my screen.
All right, let's see if I can do that. I don't have this capability. I have to ask Yusuf Riaz.
Yes, sir. I have made her the co-host. Now she can share the screen.
Okay.
Can all of you see my screen?
Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay. So today we are I'm from group A. So I'm going to present it with my fellow Imran. And this presentation is prepared by me and Noman Sadiqi and Imran Munir. Basically, Noman Sadiqi developed these slides and I and Imran worked on this. So moving to the first question, that was that epistemology is Greek for the theory of knowledge, discuss the important difference between logical positivism and Islamic epistemology. So basically, what we read in a text that the LP epistemology only acknowledges but things that are knowledge, but that are objective and rational and logical. So basically, here I use the word only, and in Islamic epistemology, I did not use the word only because LP only acknowledges what is objective and what is backed by the data. And when we talk about Islamic epistemology, it also accepts other sources of knowledge. I will move from one point to other point. First of all, talk about objectivity. Basically, what LP claims that whatever is backed by the data, it is true, and anything else is false. Or basically, then they give the definition from rationality, and whatever falls under their definition of rationality is true, and all other things are false. And we're moving to the logic and reason, and they only accept things that are logical and can be reasoned as true, and they just claim that all other things are false. If you can't see them, you can't say that they are true. Basically, talking about then Islamic epistemology, then we have divine knowledge. And divine knowledge also covers umbrellas the unseen knowledge as well. So basically, Islamic epistemology also accepts the things that are unseen. And then talking about the meaningfulness, basically, Islamic epistemology considers God's creation as meaningful. And when we see Quran or read, we have ayat that talks about they talk about tafakkur, and then they talk about contemplating, and they tap the human intellect. They say they encourages human that please contemplate on your surroundings, and you are going to find the signs of God. So it considers human as intellectual beings. And talking about the morality, so morality is very important aspect of human living and human survival for the survival of a community. But LP epistemology says that we can't see morality, so it doesn't exist. But Islamic epistemologist talks about morality and right and wrong. It punishes you on doing wrong and rewards you for doing right. So basically, it appreciates human beings for doing right. Let's talk about kindness. Kindness is very important for a human community. But if an LP will say that kindness doesn't exist. But if we talk about Islamic epistemology, it encourages you to be kind. And the other things, unlike LP epistemology, Islamic epistemologists welcomes other sources of knowledge. It doesn't shut its doors to for the other sources of knowledge. And it's just good enough. If anyone have any question from this part, please do ask.
No, this is fine. Please try. We have 25 questions to go, so let's try to cover them.
So so basically the next question was a statement, and as you asked Dr. Saab, that if this could be proven as meaningless from the LP epistemology. So basically this particular, if we talk about the nature of this sentence, it is wrong to kill innocent. It is coming from the source of knowledge, that is morality. So LP doesn't acknowledges this source of knowledge, morality, that morality as a source, valid source of knowledge. So it rejects all the metaphysical statements. But if we talk about Islamic epistemology, here we can say that it stops you or prohibits you to kill the innocent. So this thing, if we start going with the LP, so we are not going to find anything like you can't kill an innocent. So it will result into the chaotic society, but without taking the moral judgment for a particular statement, you can't prove it wrong or right if we just stick to the LP approach. So this was from my side. Now Imran will present answer of other two questions.
Okay, good. Does he need the screen, or can you handle the screen for him?
No, I can handle the screen. He will present.
That's good. Okay, go ahead then.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yeah, if you go to next screen. Okay, so yeah. So the question is being asked here, what are the most important things to teach according to the positivist epistemology? So as we mentioned before, science is the sole source of knowledge, and other forms of knowledge are meaningless. So OP takes a very narrow viewpoint of what knowledge is, which is that which is empirically provable and based on rational logic. Also, statements within LP can either be true or false. So for example, if you take an analytic statement like all bachelors are unmarried, by its very definition, a bachelor is unmarried. So this could be said to be true. And another example being if every human has two heads. From an observability point of view, you can tell from looking at a human that they only have one head. But this also, in direct contrast to Islamic epistemology, they can't define what is right or wrong. So we're talking about true or false, but the concept of right and wrong cannot be explained in LP. So saying a statement is stealing is bad, giving charity to the poor is good. Statements like this are off limits to the advocates of LP. You cannot say, I know that stealing is wrong because my conscience tells me so. It can't be proven empirically or by any experimentation. Next point is the origins of humans is an evolutionary process where religion was part of evolution process and diminishes its utility as human process. So essentially, LP would take the view that certain traditional knowledge, religious knowledge would be set to a particular moment in time. It doesn't carry across. In regards to the importance to teach Islamic epistemology, so as been mentioned before, the knowledge of Islam, so essentially to give purpose to our existence. So here, in Islam, the most important knowledge we have is that it gives us importance to our purpose. And we can gain that by knowledge from the Quran. So we're saying here, and from that knowledge, we know how to worship Allah. So we also respect all sources of knowledge. So as has been mentioned, LP rejects knowledge of the unseen. We accept knowledge of the unseen. Science also is a knowledge we can take, as has been shown in our history where science flourished under Islam. And it was a means to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, it is imperative to refer to knowledge provided by Allah through human history. So the knowledge is timeless. It isn't particular to a particular time and space. This knowledge is for all times. So last question, how did the university change under LP? So basically, initially universities would teach morality. They would give purpose to students. So they would give them a purpose in terms of why they learn this knowledge. Ethics was taught, theology, this was taught on the same par as science. So with the emergence of LP, this influenced the universities, and essentially anything value laden was no longer seen as being factual knowledge. So factual knowledge took over this. Science and material knowledge was seen as being the only de facto knowledge. And you can see that in like modern universities where students who graduate now, they tend to go into fields where it's career-based, money-based. It's not for the benefit of humanity. Could you go to the next slide, please? So this question is dealing with, so to become scholars, seekers of knowledge, you must start to think about how knowledge is shaped. This can be called meta-thinking or thinking about thinking. Explain the historical factors which led to the philosophy of logical positivism, and explain how this historical background and context help us understand the philosophy better. So the first point raised is loss of faith led to the decline of the church's influence, and the first point being corruption. So the start of the corrupt behavior through successive popes in the 16th century, this is where it initially began. This would eventually lead to an uprising against the church and the emergence of Protestant sects. So for a while, you had bloody wars, which would then lead to like a disenchantment and disillusionment among the people. And so in the Enlightenment period, when new scientific ideas were at loggerheads with Christian teaching, so the second point, division between religion and science, what you saw was Christian teachings having conflicts with new scientific ideas. As an example of Galileo, how he's forced to deny heliocentrism, i.e. planets orbited the sun. there was now a direct conflict between those teachings and these new teachings. So again, this led to rejection, more of a rejection of religion. So eventually science would claim the upper position in society. So what would happen after this, secular thinkers rejected the teachings of religion completely, and they sought to create a new way to understand the world without any reference to God. So this was a major implication. The major implication of this is they had to reject all knowledge from before, right? So they had no moral foundation to work upon. They had rejected religion, so they needed to come up with new ideas and new ways to govern society. So in regards to how knowing about its history gives us a better context. So this helps us to understand the philosophy, as they were unable to build a moral foundation by rejecting religion. This led them to other extremes, to only see science as the only knowable fact. And questions such as the purpose of life could not be answered from science. So they would need to devise new methods to answer fundamental questions, something which they struggled to do. That's it from my side. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next group. Maaz and Naveed. Hello, is the Maaz there?
Yes, I just got the access to share the screen. So
Okay.
just a minute, please. I hope it is visible.
Yes, I can see the screen.
Okay, so the first question that was given, it was about the today one can earn a lot of money by learning software engineering skills, but not much by learning the interpretation of Quran. Does this mean that software engineering is more useful knowledge than Quran? Explain the views in your own words. So as a group, that we came to the conclusion that I think it is the usefulness of the knowledge that is more important than the output in terms of observable. So in today's world, what we are going to or what we perceive knowledge is that in terms of its output that we can observe. For example, how much salary we can earn, or what are the potential benefits, monetary benefits of that knowledge. So I think the usefulness is very important, whether it is the monetary benefit or whether it is for our own purpose, for our own sake, for our own life, to serve the humanity maybe. So this usefulness is quite important in terms of defining that which knowledge is more useful. So in terms of usefulness, I think that, of course, it's our iman that the knowledge that we are going to gain from Quran, that is far more usefulness, has more usefulness than the knowledge that a software engineer can get, and maybe get a good salary for the time being, but in the long term it may not benefit himself. The second point here is the intuition that the person have, that with which intuition the person is going to acquire the knowledge. So it has also very important position in Islamic epistemology. Wherever, if we talk about the logical positivism, they reject the usefulness in terms of unobservable benefits and the intuition also. So this rejection of the unobservable and the intuition, I think these are the most kind of toxic thinking which lead us to only acquire that knowledge which is only which has only the monetary benefit to us.
Yes, I think that what you are trying to say is that usefulness can be measured in terms of external variables, how much money, house, car, or internal variables. Do you feel peace of mind, contentment, happiness? So the internal variables are unobservable, so they cannot be considered as relevant by LP. It cannot see them. It cannot.
Exactly, sir.
Yes. Okay, go ahead. Next.
Okay, thank you. The second is if teachings of Islam contains the power to lead ignorant and backward people into the light of knowledge, then why are the Muslims ignorant and backward today? So there are, we come up with 4 or 5 reasons that today's Muslim are quite backward and ignorant. So first of these reasons is the acceptance of Western knowledge, Western education, and all of the knowledge that we are gaining from them, that they are the only source of the knowledge. They have supremacy in creating or in doing innovation in the knowledge. So we are just the acceptor, not the innovators. So this is one of the reason that we are just ignorant. We just take it as it is, and we don't think that whether it is beneficial for us or not, or we can, in the simple words, we are just copying it. And the other reason is the fragmentation between Islamic knowledge and all other sources of knowledge. For example, here I mean to say here is that the Islamic knowledge that we acquire today, or most of the Muslim acquire today, it is for their, they think that it is for their akhirah only, or the life hereafter. This knowledge, is Islamic knowledge, is not going to benefit them in this world. So this so maybe they think that they are not, this knowledge is just benefit, or the benefits should be in terms of monetary benefit, in terms of observable benefits. So here that point again comes in, that the benefits are basically leading to acquired knowledge, and this fragmentation, this bifurcation of knowledge is again quite toxic for Muslims. The third is the discontinuity or disconnectivity in deeds, that we do our deeds related to intent, like namaz, etc., with the intention that it is going to help us in the life hereafter. But for this world, for this life, we only have to do those jobs with which we can get the monetary benefit. Again, to follow these, we are again going to copy the Western way of doing living life. And the fourth reason is the loss of socioeconomic systems that we had during the early rise of time. So because all the systems that we have now is, again, it is the Western system. So we need to just come up with our own system, with our own Islamic epistemology. The last reason is the lack of independent critical interpretation of Islamic teachings. So Islamic teachings have been interpreted in a far more, we can say, open view, with the open view it was than it is now, because Muslim mind is now becoming quite, we can say, quite hard, or but we can say that it is not accepting the change, or we are not accepting the views of others. So this is the thing that we have to consider for acceptance of new Islamic system. So if sir, if you want to add something to it, please.
I think that there is too many things. There's one basic thing, is that we have stopped looking to the Quran for guidance, and we are looking to the West for guidance. And this is the source of our ignorance and backwardness today. And the reason for this is because a Western education makes us dependent on the West for thinking. Anyway, these are all good points, but I think the root cause is that we are looking to West for guidance instead of the Quran. But let's go on to the next.
Yeah, sure. So the third question is, explain why the problems Muslims face today are similar to those faced by Muslims in the times of Mutazila. So the problems that were faced during the times of Mutazila, it was like the Greek philosophy was just accepted by the whole world. So the Mutazila during that time, the Muslims also accept that philosophy as it is, and they think that it is the only philosophy. If we follow that, we are going to be more innovative, or it is going to help out in their lives as compared to the Muslim philosophy, or they are not going to innovate within the Muslim teachings or Muslim knowledge. So today the situation of the Muslims are just similar. We have accepted the Western knowledge as it is, Western philosophies as it is. We need to see that whether these philosophies are going to benefit us in the life here or in the life hereafter, whether it is going to benefit the humanity or not. Similarly, the concept of progress and development is just borrowed from the West again. So this definitions of development, definition of progress, we need to reconsider this. because the definition of Western philosophers is it is just for the life here, and it is based on the toxic concepts like self-utility, self-maximization, profit maximization, etc. So we need to consider those definitions, those teachings that are more helpful for the whole humanity.
Okay, so is that the first question or more?
So there is last one. Explain how Imam Ghazali solved the problems created by the Mu'tazila and 3 steps of Ghazali project required to recreate his solution today. So here we have the 3 concepts that are posed. Which one is the importance of qalb. So we don't have to just rely on the reason or on the mind only. We need to look into our qalb, whether this knowledge is giving the peace to us, whether this knowledge is giving us more help in our life. Similarly, the incoherence of Western philosophies, we need to search more, like Imam Ghazali have done during his time. And the last one is the revival of the religious sciences, that we need to do innovation or do reconsider the teaching that Islam has brought us 1400 years ago.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. I think this is fine. Next, we have Lisa and Mubashir. Who is going to present, Lisa or Mubashir?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Okay, thank you, sir. Actually, this was the result of the discussion of the 6 members this morning of our group. So for today, I will share our discussion on the first regarding to the elements of the message of the final message of God that given to mankind in the form of Quran and Sunnah. Some elements that we think important is regarding to the clarity of the purpose of life, which change the mindset and the behavior of the Sahaba, and this give consequences to the priority of life, and to enable them to have the hereafter and area oriented. So this is the most important things that we identify regarding to the elements of the message.
Yes, very good. I think these are good points, and there are many others like this. And the point that I want to bring out from this is that your education, which we all receive, does not do any of this. It just teaches you physics. And this is why you can't make any progress, because you're not being taught the important things, the things that create revolution in our lives. Anyway, and so
Yes.
How can we teach statistics so that these things also are taught? Anyway, go ahead to the next question.
Okay. The next question about the why the West give false story. The false story is propagated and widely believed, and the real reason for the global conquest of by Europe. So we think that this is due to the real reason is to get the power and acquisition of the resources, and to justify the liberal philosophy through the education system, and to promote their ideology. So they share to us the white man burden, which is kind of the fabricated history that they tell to the rest of the world.
Yes.
And the third section about why the conquest of knowledge and colonization of the mind is more important, because knowledge and mindsets have the civilization, and the manifestation of power is actually can be shaped through knowledge. So we think that this is more important than the weapons and armies, even though still the physical things, the weapon and armies is to control in the term of the physical things, but the mental, then the mindset is more important, because they set the civilization.
Okay, good.
And the fourth question, given the colonization already ended more than 70 years ago, why do we still have colonized mind? We identify that this is the long-term effect of the colonization of the minds through our education system, and it is a kind of challenges to change the education system. They already use Western-oriented. So this is the things that why we still have our mind being colonized, because of we still ongoing having the Western education system in our life.
Yes, it is the Western education system which colonizes our minds, and that is continuing full force, full strength today, just like before.
Yes, and the last question, what need to be done to liberate ourselves of the colonization of minds? First, we think that we need to get closer to Islamic teaching so that we can identify the superiority of our Quran, and we can develop the subject based on the Islamic epistemology. And the most important thing is we need to start from ourselves, to detoxic the Western philosophy that was being taught during our education since our study in the first elementary until the university.
Right.
I think that's all, Prof, from our
Okay,
group.
good.
Thank you.
Let us go to the next session. We are running late. But who is in the next? So we have done C, now we are in D. Who is Amna and Waqar? Any of you here? Amna? Where is Amina or Waqar?
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, Nurgul will present
Oh,
answers.
Nurgul, Shivansh, yes. Okay, Nurgul, can you unmute and present?
Thank you. Let me share my screen. First question, explain the distinction between useful and useless knowledge in Islamic epistemology. Evaluate whether the Western education you have received has provided you with useful knowledge. Provide some discussion of how this impacts on your life personally. What kind of education could have provided you with better guidance about your important life decisions? So whether knowledge is useful or not depends on if it serves to our aim in this life. We as caliphs of God are in this world to earn endless afterlife. Thus, useful knowledge is the one that provides us the knowledge of how to live this life to reach this aim. If it doesn't provide us how to live this life to reach this aim, it's not useful.
Very good.
Second question, explain why the use of the term science in social science is deceptive. It makes claims about the nature of knowledge provided by the social sciences, which are false. Science as a word is made us believe that it is objective. For the part of science that is observable, this can be true. However, for social sciences in which everything can change, depending on the point you look or observe things, it's not true. A universal knowledge regarding social sciences can only be obtained through the knowledge provided by God, the creator of this universe.
Yes, good.
It is widely believed that statistical analysis of data, third question, it is widely believed that statistical analysis of data, just like mathematical calculation, is objective and value neutral. It has no connection with morality. Explain why this idea is wrong. And the pioneer of modern statistics, Sir Ronald Fisher, as a professor of eugenics, has the ideology that whites are superior to other colors. And analysis of covariance was explored to differentiate the impact of genes from environmental factors regarding human beings. Hence, the fundamentals of statistics were based on the wrong ideologies. And the last question. According to Hadid, the value of all actions lies in the intentions. What are the intentions we should make for our study of statistics or for other subjects, which will turn our search for knowledge into an act of worship? Knowledge has been praised of many times in Quran and Hadith. We should obtain knowledge with the aim of performing our religious or worldly duties in the best way, as we use knowledge to live our lives in the direction that God asks from us. If we use knowledge to reach this path and to remain on this path, then this knowledge turns into an act of worship.
Yes. Any questions about this? All right, let's go on to the last group. Yeah, section E. Right, who's presenting for section E? Asad Khan, yes. Asad Khan is also in Turkey. All right, Asad.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Assalamu alaikum to all of you.
By the way, if anybody is not in one of the groups, there is a lot of confusion. Then you should just either write to one of the group leaders if you want to choose a group yourself, or you can write to me and I will put you into a group.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and I can see your screen.
Okay. So the first question is that explain why Sir Ronald Fisher, the father of modern statistics, said that reduction of data is the goal of statistical analysis. Explain why we must change this goal today. The non-availability of speedy computational facilities, non-availability of data collection resources, non-availability of data storing handling resources. Sir Fisher introduced the idea of a hypothetical distribution which does not exist in real world, are not developed based on real world phenomena. And this distribution is characterized by a few number of parameters. If the data at hand matches with the hypothetical distribution as a result of some statistical tests or by assumption or by both, then that whole data can also be characterized or summarized by the respective few sample statistics corresponding to those parameters, population parameters or distribution parameters. Now, in the current world, as we have computational power and we have all of those resources, so now we can analyze the data at hand directly without making any hypothetical assumptions about it. Therefore, we should change the goal of statistical analysis today.
Good. Yes, this was the first point, arbitrary assumptions that I mentioned. Yes.
Yes. The second question is that textbooks offer 3 types of definitions for probability: frequency theory, purely mathematical, or subjective. Find a textbook definition and explain intuitively why it does not apply to real world situations where probability is used, like a coin toss to decide who will go first. So first, coming to the frequency theory depends upon infinite repetition of an event, and which is also hypothetical. And this infinite repetition, it is not possible in real world and it does not exist. So it is only hypothetical. And then like this example, that if we are saying that between the 2 participants who will go first, the coin will decide. So actually we are hypothesizing it that there is a space where it is infinite repeated, and then the coin will decide who will go first. The purely mathematical definition, it starts with a probability space, again hypothetical, and from probability space there is a sample space, and some subset of a sample space is called an event. So we can understand it by a trade game between 2 humans. So for example, if a person has $1,000 and he is given $1,000 and he can offer some amount from that $1,000 to another person. If the other person rejects offer, nobody gets anything. So according to hypothetical, that person who is offering, he will offer the minimum amount, maybe $1, and the other person will accept it. That means that because he is maximizing utility, and for the first person is maximizing utility. But when you go to the real world, irrespective of the space, irrespective of the location, and irrespective of the religion or race, you will find that the humans will not do it like this. They will not offer only $1 out of $1,000. They will be trying to justify their distribution, and that is hidden, which is not measured there. The subjective, it is a gut instinct when we are making a trade, and though there is no formal calculation about it, the subjective probability. I was not able to find. We were not able to find an example for that. That how it cannot be. It cannot exist in the real world. Maybe sir will put some words into it. The next question is, suppose we collect data on employee salaries at a large company and find that average earnings of men are much higher than those of women. On nominal grounds, purely looking at numbers, this seems like a clear-cut case of discrimination. Explain two different underlying world scenarios where these numbers have very different meanings. This shows that statistical analysis cannot be confined to numbers alone. It is necessary to go beyond the numbers and look at the real world phenomena which generates the numbers. So maybe men are working more number of hours than women, therefore they are getting much more higher wages. Maybe men are much qualified as compared to women in that sample, in that company, therefore they are getting much higher wages. Maybe the company is much more men intensive as it is dealing or handling men intensive business or type of work. Maybe men are more experienced than women, and actually,
Okay,
whenever
this is more than two, and the point is not to explain or to justify discrimination against women. The point is just that the numbers don't tell the story, and you have to spend shoe leather in order to find out the true story.
The last one researcher gathers data on shoe sizes and reading skills and finds a strong correlation between the two. He deduces that larger feet somehow lead to improved reading abilities. Someone who has taken real statistics must ask, where do these numbers come from? Who were the people who were surveyed? Show that different inferences would result from a population of elementary school students versus a population of college students. Again, here age may be a hidden factor. Maybe there are so many others. So in elementary school, the shoe size will increase rapidly as compared to college, and same with the reading skills. Both of these variables are related to age. So one may find a very strong positive relationship, but it will be a spurious one. And in the college, the shoe size will not increase rapidly as compared to elementary school, and same with reading skill, as most of students have already attained an optimum reading skill in their school. So either one may find no relationship between them or a weak relationship.
So that's right. This is the point is that you cannot do data analysis without understanding where the numbers come from. And actually in technical statistics, you are taught the opposite, that you don't need to know about the real world. You only need to know look at the numbers. All right, so I think we have covered all the groups, and now we can open the floor to questions from anybody. We still have a few minutes, 15 minutes before 7:30. So normally this lecture would be 6 to 7:30. So any questions on anything about the course or about the technical details or about the material? No. Okay, so any questions? Okay, we have some raised hands here. Let's see, how do I get to that?
Assalamu alaikum, Doctor. This is Noman Siddiqui.
Okay, Noman Siddiqui.
Actually, my question is about the Google form you had shared earlier, and we had given our responses to it. So the last question of that form was about if you have any confusion or anything, clarity that you want to understand. So just want to ask, will you be or anyone will be giving us some answers about those questions in the form?
Oh, the Google Forms, that is the quiz. Yes, I will provide feedback on all of those questions, inshallah.
Okay, okay, great, great. Thank you so much.
So,
Hello?
anybody? Yes?
Hi, I have a one quick question. Like we are talking about like maybe the correlation between the modern stats and versus like Islamic thing. But before going to the like a correlation, how many of us, whoever is Muslim, I mean, we can find the correlation when you are truly, I would say like you are chosen Muslim, right? If you're just Muslim by birth, not by choice, then there is no point of finding a correlation kind of thing, right? When you do say, when you do, I mean, you say A, but you do B in real world. So I don't understand like why we are going there unless asking a questions, are we really by birth or by choice? Then we don't have to find a correlation when we know the correlation.
We are talking about epistemology, the theory of knowledge.
Yes.
This doesn't really have to do with whether you believe or whether you're a hypocrite, whether you're a munafiq or whether you're a kafir. It really makes no difference. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. Are we going to know about appearances, or can we learn about the reality underlying the appearances? Do we need to only deal with numbers? Can big data answer the questions, or can it not? So if you take a nominalist view, a positivist view, which is what current statistics is based on, then big data can answer all questions because everything that you can see, you can measure. But if you take the realist view, the Islamic epistemology, then the reality is hidden and the numbers cannot capture it. And knowledge is about the hidden reality. So big data cannot answer the questions. So this has nothing to do with whether you believe or you don't believe, or whether you are a hypocrite or whether you are acting piously.
But to what extent the stats cannot answer, right? So, I mean, there is a line where we can say, okay, to this extent, the modern thing can tell me the answer, but after that, the knowledge is hidden, where any religion can probably answer.
A lot of things that we are discussing doesn't have to do with religion as such. It has to do with the rejection of religion in the West, which took place after their bad experiences with Christianity. And with this rejection of religion, they rejected morality, they rejected testimony of the heart, they rejected guesswork, they rejected the internal psyche of human beings as the basis of knowledge. They developed behavioral psychology, that only what we can see is the actions of human beings and not their hidden intentions.
So it's like we are more like robotic people instead of a real one, because we are only relying on numbers or the facts we can see.
Exactly. This is, if you have studied economics, you know that every human being is treated as a robot whose behavior is subject to mathematical law. So that is what the positivist theory creates, where every human being is treated like a robot. So saying that you are not a robot and you have free will is already, you have broken free of positivist epistemology.
Okay, now I got it. That's why I was like, I don't know what exactly we are trying to conclude based on religion or like what. Okay, anyway, I hope I just get the answer. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I am Maz here. Sir, I just wanted to ask that as you have explained the Islamic epistemology and we are applying it in subject of statistics, so can I find some writing of you where these rules or these laws can be find out that what are the Islamic epistemology or how it can be applied if we want to do in future for any other topic, like maybe any other thing in
Yes,
addition to
actually,
stat.
what you are saying is correct, that these rules can be applied to any discipline in the social sciences, and you can rebuild it from scratch. I have not written anything specifically about this, and there is a lot of work going on, and it is available. I think the best place to start that would be from the lectures by Rajab Shanturk, who has a sequence of lectures called Decolonizing the Social Sciences. So it has a much deeper treatment. I'm just using as much as I need, the smallest amount that I need to develop a new course of statistics. I'm not really going into depth in epistemology and philosophy at all. I'm just doing the minimum possible that I need. Okay.
Yes,
Anything
thank you,
else?
sir.
Anyone else? All right, I think that I don't see any raised hands now.
Yes, sir. I have a question regarding the the probability theory, sir. You have explained. In that, can you recommend us some book or some material, or if you have some earlier presentation or any other work which
I have
can
one
give
or
us
two
some
quotes,
more?
but this probability theory is unknown to anybody else. Nobody else has written anything about it. We are going to develop it for the first time in this course. There is actually some work, but it's very obscure and very difficult to read, and just one or two articles. So we are going to learn about it in this course, but it doesn't exist.
Okay.
All right. Okay, then. I think we can.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, I'm Rafi. I have a question.
Oh, yes.
When we generally in empirical research, when we see some results which are counterintuitive, then people are inclined to explain that. They explain why this is counterintuitive. So
Yes.
does it mean that we have already been distancing ourselves from logical positivism towards some alternative approaches?
Actually, you see, this is the problem, very serious problem, that what is being done and what actually happens and how you describe it is two different things. So when you write a research article in economics, you have an intuition, you have an idea about what you want to prove, and then you build a model to prove it. You have a theory and you find the data and you run regressions until you prove that theory. And this is well known. So you can change the model, you can put things in and take things out because you're completely flexible. And similarly for the data, you can put in variables and take out variables. So basically what you're doing is arguing to a foregone conclusion. You have already decided the question, but the way you write it, it seems as if you are doing research, you are starting out with open mind, and then you are constructing a model, and the model is actually telling you something. When in fact, this is not true. The model is not telling you anything. You already knew what the model is going to tell you, and you built the model in order to prove what you wanted to prove. So because of this deception, it's hard to understand what is actually going on.
Thanks, sir.
All right, so I think that we are now approaching 7:30, and if there are no more questions, then we can conclude this session. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun al mursaleen alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. So see you in 3 weeks, inshallah. All right, so we are ending this now.